Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Stop Doing That podcast. I'm
John.
I'm here with my good friend Andrea to talk further about people and things that really need to cut it out. They just gotta stop it. Don't you agree?
Why? Why must you be like this? I literally, the instant I put a spoonful of yogurt in my mouth.
Oh, that's the perfect timing then.
Yes,
All right.
hello, my name is Andrea. My
Yeah,
pronouns are
yes.
she and her.
Yeah, yes, she is. And so we're back here today. This episode will involve a touch of New York. Just a touch, just as a little treat.
Oh.
I got the hockey game on the TV. I'm hoping Canada wins because fuck this stupid ass god awful
Hey,
country.
hey, hey. That's very unpatriotic of you. I will have you know that our athletes are doing their best and they do not represent the seemingly ineffable whims of the mad government that we all live under.
I mean, yes, but still, I don't want a certain individual to have anything to talk about. Something to boost his ego. Anyways, so Andrea, are you a fan of American football?
No.
Great. Anyway, well, I am, I guess. I mean, I don't like the NFL as an organization, but I do like the sport itself. I was crazy about it when I was 10 until about like 14, and it's kind of become a hyperfixation again recently. I'm not insane about it. I couldn't tell you what the defense is going to do. I couldn't tell you the mechanics that make a good quarterback. But I do think it's a fun sport to watch. It's like chess, but violent. Um,
I
it
mean,
makes
I could
very
help you create violent chess. You don't need American football.
I
We
mean,
can't just play chess and I will randomly punch you in the face.
now that would be fun. I would enjoy. Well, isn't that just boxing chess basically?
No, because the two sports um are separated.
I mean, yeah, I guess they are. Um, anyways, I think football is very good background noise for when I'm playing Sonic Crossworlds or thinking about how my life has gone so horribly wrong. Sometimes both. And that's why, even though my favorite season of the year is probably summer followed by spring, I don't mind it when fall and winter come around because it just means we get football back. Spring and summer don't have football. They're not cool enough for it, literally and figuratively. But some people with lots of money disagree with that. And over the years, many have attempted to make that a reality. Football,
Oh no.
professional football, if you will, during the spring and summer, that is not the NFL. And that's what we're talking about today.
Oh
Football
no.
leagues that were professional and not the NFL.
Oh
I
boy.
think, yeah, and believe me, there are more than you think. People have really been trying to do. People are still trying to do this, unsuccessfully, mind you.
I do believe one of the people who attempted this um was or well is the former and current president of the United States.
Indeed, he is, and we will be talking about him later in this episode.
Yay!
Ugh, God. Yeah. So, to start off, though, we have to talk about before we talk about the NFL's offshoots. We have to first talk about how the NFL came to be. For much of American football's early days, so like the 19 1910s, 1920s or so, all anyone really cared about was college football, not professional football, which was seen mostly as a joke. It was something football was a game for teens and strapping young men, not adults.
Bastard.
And something going on back over there?
Cat.
Oh no.
I would like to briefly introduce and then swiftly remove third co-host of the show, my cat Chuck.
Yes, indeed. He is a fantastic co-host. Chuck, you got anything to say?
He's now been removed.
All right.
He was
Okay.
found to be like a field streaker. He showed up. He's not wearing pants, and he has been swiftly removed from the premises.
Good. That's how you do it here. Anyways, now this was not the case just for football. This was the case for most professional sports. People really only cared about like amateur sports played by college students because it was seen
I
as a
mean,
part of growing up. And amateurs, another part of it was amateurs were seen as they were doing it for the love of the game and nothing else. Professional players were seen as people who were either doing it, playing this game just for a paycheck or because they couldn't grow up. Men weren't
it,
supposed to play sports. They were supposed to get a job in a factory and then die horribly in either a war or an extremely preventable industrial accident.
man, I miss those days. I wouldn't mind watching one of our many great football men be ground to mulch by the great bone crushing machine.
Yes, we do need more.
Which I should note, I have to live next to here at the podcasting factory.
We do really need more terrible people dying in horrific industrial accidents. That would be fantastic. Um, Anyways, pro football players in these days usually had jobs outside of the game because it didn't pay very well. They also might play like multiple positions in the game, which is something that doesn't happen at all today, really. Most of the teams from that time don't exist anymore either. The first NFL champions were the Canton Bulldogs in 1922, which is where the NFL Hall of Fame is today, but the team does not exist anymore. The only teams from that time that are still around are the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Cardinals, who became the Arizona Cardinals, and the Green Bay Packers. Then in
Well, that
1926,
is I'm not gonna lie, that's a distinctly disappointing fact. I was
yeah,
kind of hoping that the Packers had just shown up like a mold.
oh boy, I mean, yeah, maybe. Um, or like the moles that is growing on Brett Favre's brain all the time, probably. Anyways, then in 1926, the American Football League, the AFL, was born out of star player Red Grange wanting a team of his own in New York and being told no. But unfortunately for him, as football slowly grew into the unofficial national sports, the NFL buried the AFL. The 1958 NFL championship game between the New York Giants and the Baltimore Colts was particularly cited as being when the sport exploded. This was basically the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl. The two best teams in the NFL dueling it out in a one game winner takes all format. Football was especially important in Baltimore because they didn't have a college team to cheer on and they were economically destitute. So the Colts were about all they had. Colts quarter,
I don't think anything's changed there, actually.
not really, no. Um, Colts quarterback Johnny Unitas put on what is considered by many to be the greatest individual performance in football history. leading his team down the field in the final minutes to tie the game and take it to overtime, which had never happened before in any football game, apparently.
I'm sorry, but when you name a man Johnny Unitas, I'm gonna be honest. I was expecting a bit more than a generic white guy.
Yeah, maybe. It is a really. How do you describe that
He
name?
is a rather large man, but beyond that,
I mean, yeah. Um, anyways, the Colts won the game and the championship with a touchdown in overtime, and Unitas became an icon. The game is still considered the greatest football game ever played, in part because it was watched on national television by 40 million people, which in 1958 is impressive. That is,
yeah, that is impressive.
yeah. After that, the sport grew exponentially and became the most popular spectator sport in America in just a few years. But while all of that was going on, what was the AFL up to? The AFL was basically seen as the NFL's dumb younger brother. After Red Grange failed to get the league up and going, it was revived in 1960 under the same name and continued to struggle. The teams were in places where pro sports didn't have much of a presence at the time, with the first teams including the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos, the Buffalo Bills, and the Boston Patriots, who later became the New England Patriots. The AFL was viewed as being like the minor league, with players who weren't good enough to play in the NFL. And while the teams were in cities where there weren't professional sports teams, the residents of those cities already had a preferred NFL team, and they weren't going to abandon them for an AFL team. The league also ran on a shoestring budget, with one camera far away from the field, usually capturing all of the footage for a game. These games were usually played in baseball stadiums, high school stadiums, and even just literal parks because they couldn't.
Wait. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Did you just say baseball stadium?
Yeah.
I'm. There is not enough. There is not enough like dimensional space
No, they've done
in
it
a
before.
baseball field.
I've seen there were NFL teams even somewhat recently who have done that. I know the New York Jets did that for a little while. They played. I don't know how it works exactly, but they found a way, I guess. Um, to give you an idea of how poor these teams were, they couldn't afford to turn on the lights sometimes in the stadiums.
Huh. Okay. I am looking at it now. And okay, yeah, it is feasible. It is feasible to build a football field over the width of a professionally sized baseball stadium.
Yeah, it is possible. Uh,
But you will have the end zones tracking into the field margins.
yeah, it's definitely probably not a great viewing experience for the spectators.
Yeah, especially for the people who are sat to like one of the opposite outfield to where the field has actually been constructed
Yeah.
because you've just been crammed into a corner that's far away from everything.
Yeah, it's probably a bit like when I went to a preseason game for the Washington Commanders, and we got to the stadium. Our seats were directly behind a large concrete pillar. We couldn't see anything. Dan Snyder is just a wonderful man, isn't he?
I
He's
get the feeling that we may at some point have a Dan Snyder episode.
we probably could. We probably could. At least if Behind the Bastards doesn't do it before us. And also that one camera that they had, that filmed the highlight reels for all of the teams, which they would put on television, but they wouldn't air the games live. It would be pre-recorded. Still, the AFL had loyal fans, and a league that was predicted to die very quickly kept chugging along. One thing that attracted people was that the AFL teams ran more trick plays, and they throw the ball a lot more than in the NFL. Back in these days, NFL teams preferred to just hand the ball off to the running back and let them work their way up the field, only throwing the ball if there was like no other option. The AFL was also a lot more aggressive. These guys would like rip each other's heads off, basically. There'd be so much CTE today if the AFL was still around and still like that.
So you might describe it as the Australian rules football of American football.
More or less, yes.
Okay, I could get behind that. I could get behind that. I will say I am, though not a fan of American football, I do occasionally enjoy Aussie rules football.
Yeah. And also the NFL, so the NFL, it was more about like wearing down your opponent physically, just wearing them out. Whereas the AFL was about doing whatever you could to put points on the board. The AFL also had a lot more black players than the NFL did. This was during the civil rights movement, remember? So people sympathetic to those causes, they gravitated more towards the AFL. It was called the Freedom League for this. Unlike the
Huh.
NFL, unlike the NFL, where there was a sense that there was a quota for black players on their teams. The AFL did have an issue with facial hair, though. That was seen as undignified in the 1960s. It might cause someone to come down with a case of the vapors or something. The AFL kept getting uh, a little bigger and bigger. They got newer, top of the line stadiums and even better players. But still, the NFL had no respect for them. The AFL was the minor league baseball of football, and a lot of fans saw it the same way. To try and gain respect from these fans, AFL players made themselves more accessible than NFL players, especially with kids and the media. They tried kind of like making themselves into like superheroes, basically. They were the first to have their names printed on their jerseys, and they always tried to add a bit of flair to how they played. In the end, this was entertainment for a lot of people. The players knew that and tried to make sure that people were entertained watching them. And as a result of this, eventually the AFL got big enough. The two leagues decided it would be better to be under one united cause. In 1966, the AFL and the NFL merged into the NFL. They would still be effectively two separate leagues, and they retain their names, but they both recruit college players from the same draft. And at the end of the season, the champions of both leagues would meet each other to play in the World Championship game, a bowl game among all bowl games, a Super Bowl, if you will.
Well, it's hard to exactly call it. Why the hell are you so wet? I would like to re-welcome third co-host to the podcast, Chuck. He is now in my lap. But the you can't exactly call them the world champions when we're the only place that plays it at
Yeah,
that point.
that's a common criticism, especially at this point.
World
I mean,
Cup my ass.
yeah,
Well, World Cup is fine, but like, you know the
yeah,
one I'm talking about, the one for baseball.
yeah.
Why are you
Anyway,
so wet, you little bastard?
anyways, the NFL films who shot the games They also started shooting the AFL games under the name AFL Films. The first two Super Bowls were won by the NFL's Green Bay Packers, seemingly proving that the NFL indeed had the better players. But that notion didn't last much longer. The two
Yeah,
leagues
because
held,
you're using Green Bay as a measuring stick.
yeah, the two leagues still held a bit of a grudge in the first few years, but then the AFL had its first Super Bowl champion, the New York Jets, who beat Johnny Unitas and the heavily favored Colts in Super Bowl III with Joe Namath at quarterback. It was the pinnacle moment for the Jets, who are now the most pathetic team in football besides maybe the Cleveland Browns. This proved that the AFL was on the same level as the NFL, and in some ways, this game started the modern era of football. Not two leagues competing with one another, at least when it comes to viewers and the spirit of the game, but two leagues united under one banner. Even today, the leagues, now known as conferences, pit their champions against each other in the Super Bowl every year, although their teams do regularly play each other throughout the season. So, that's a heavily abbreviated history of the early days of professional football. And since then, the NFL has faced no serious competition from other leagues, but that hasn't stopped others from trying. To start off, we have the first of the NFL knockoffs was the World Football League of the 1970s. And when I say 70s, I mean about 18 months of it. On October 7th, 1973, a man named Gary Davidson, whose hair looks like it was photoshopped onto his body. I'm not kidding. Look it up. That's what it looks like.
I am. I am.
It, it looks like it's photoshopped onto his body. Anyways, he announced a 12-team league that would take on the NFL in July 1974. This would be in the middle of summer, so they would run unopposed for at least a little while. During all of this, the NFL was threatened with a players' strike over disagreements with team owners. They filled out the rosters for teams like the Philadelphia Bell, the Florida Blazers, the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Sharks, the Birmingham Americans, and did you find
The
him?
Birmingham Americans? No,
Oh,
I've not been able to find the man that you're talking about, though I did find a different man named Harry Davidson, who looks like a reject from like the Adams family.
oh boy. Let's see if I can
Uh,
find him.
I
Anyway,
will swiftly provide you the image.
the Birmingham. By the way, the name that town, Birmingham, that is going to come up a lot in this episode.
Oh no.
And also, there were the Hawaiians. Where do you think they played? Where do you think the Hawaiians played?
Fucking Maine, probably.
Can you believe that they played in Hawaii? At least I think they did. Maybe they
I'm
didn't.
frank. Yes, I am actually, frankly, astounded by the fact that they played in Hawaii.
I'm not even sure if they did. They may well not have. Also, there is Gary Davidson. He's the picture
Oh,
I'm talking about
Gary
is in there.
Davidson. Okay. Oh, I see what. Oh God. Oh no. He looks like one of the randomly generated CEOs from OpenTTD. Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, and if the NFL couldn't sort out their issues with the players, they could have been. There's a chance that the WFL, the World Football League, could have seen more of the NFL's brightest stars. While the first 12 teams in this league were American, the idea was to eventually expand globally and to have the two best teams meet at the World Bowl. football's true World Championship game. I gotta say, World Bowl sounds cooler than Super Bowl. It just does.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to admire their dedication in their attempting to actually make it a global sport.
Yeah, again, a theme you'll see later in this episode, too. The first edition of the World Bowl was scheduled for December 5th, 1974, at Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama. The WFL had some different rules from the NFL, mainly when it came to overtime. In the NFL, at least back in these days, overtime was sudden death. You score, you win. That's it. In the WFL, overtime was divided into two halves of 7.5 minutes, and all of those minutes were to be played, kind of like in soccer, actually. Um, Another difference was the aesthetics. The WFL uniforms were brighter and flashier than the NFL uniforms, and the football that they played with was yellow. They also used pants as a way to tell what position a player was. I'm going to be honest, the uniforms and the football are hideous. I do not like
I
them.
I well, when you describe, I'm looking at a WFL football right now, and when you said it was yellow, I was expecting like these guys are like punting around a lemon. This is barely yellow.
Yeah, it's sort of more like a light brown almost.
Yeah.
Anyways, another difference was also that the WFL MVP award winner received $10,000 in cash, which was about $65,000 today. And also, they had the device that they used to measure if a team got a first down was called the Dicker Rod. And it was literally a stick on a rolling gurney thing. The advantage was that only one person had to firmly grasp it, as opposed to three men needing to hold all of the equipments, like the chain and the ball and the stick. You know,
I I'm looking at this contraption here, and I'm viewing the various images, and one of them is just like a football referee aiming through what appears to be a rifle scope, probably pointed at like Kennedy or something.
this is how they got him. This is how they took. That's what he used to take out to make Kennedy's head do that. It wasn't a bullet. It was a dicker rod. Anyways, the WFL picked up failed NFL stars, but they did also have their own college draft, and this is how. And through this and the NFL talent strike going on, they did manage to get some really good players. Alfred Jenkins went from the WFL to one of the NFL's best receivers. Larry Zonka was a Super Bowl MVP in 1974, then jumped to the WFL because they offered him $3.5 million over 2 years, which is an insane contract for 1974. Uh, his NFL salary, for reference, was $50,000 a year. Um, there was also Ken Stabler, who went on to get into the NFL Hall of Fame. He played in the WFL. The opening days for the WFL were great. The crowds were enormous. The Philadelphia Bell, for instance, drew 55,000 fans to their first home game and 64,000 to their second. However, those were lies. The teams have been lying about the number of tickets they sold. The first game for the Bell attracted about 13,000, and the second only about 5,000, because the rest of
Oh,
those people got in for free. They they sold I guess to better explain it, they sold 13,000 tickets and then let in like 40,000 people for free. Um, anyways, when this word of this got out, the investors were pissed and they pulled out because that's borderline fraud. And once that issue got fixed, attendance dipped into the hundreds. Yes, hundreds. The Bell's ninth game brought an estimated 750 people to the stadium. Also, these teams had
Ooh.
to pay a franchise fee, which is normal in sports. You can't just make a team, you have to pay millions of dollars up front to be allowed in. I guess the idea is since teams they split the revenue, a franchise fee makes up for the other teams getting less money now that there's another mouth to feed, basically. In the WFL, several teams straight up did not pay the franchise fee and were just allowed in anyway. And as a result of this, the teams were broke. The players didn't get paid for months at times. They had to live off of McDonald's vouchers and fans just bringing them food. The Charlotte Hornets missed games because they couldn't pay for their laundry and had their jerseys confiscated as collateral. A playoff game between the Florida Blazers and the Charlotte Hornets was canceled because the Hornets' ticket sales were so low that they couldn't afford to keep going and thus withdrew from the playoffs.
You know what? In this day and age of of people who with names that you can swear that they are just making up on the spot, being paid umpteen millions to kick a ball around a field. I support I support the League of Poor Athletes.
You know what? Yeah,
The League
how
of
could
just
that be
like
something?
I am licking McDonald's wrappers for sustenance, and then I'm gonna go punt a ball around a field.
That would indeed be quite something, wouldn't it? Anyways, um, the only World Bowl was a matchup of the Florida Blazers and the Birmingham Americans. The game almost didn't happen because the players weren't getting paid, and they only did it because if they won, they could sell their championship rings. Attendance was piss poor, and as the Americans celebrated their 22-21 victory, police went through their lockers and repossessed everything they could find, eventually even taking the jerseys after the game was over. The yeah, how about that? Years later, years after this, after because eventually the league just shut down because they just had no money. They had no money to do anything with. Years later, the owner of the Mid South Grizzlies tried suing the NFL to force a merger, alleging antitrust violations. It didn't work. Despite the
Of course, it
league's
didn't work.
despite the league being so brief, there are WFL enthusiasts out there. Um, I don't know what's there to remember, but they think it's neat, and you know what? That's nice. That's nice. They have something, I guess, to enjoy. Anyways, on to the next one. The next offshoot pro football league came from the minds of New Orleans businessman Dave Dixon in the 1960s. He was the owner of the New Orleans Saints and the visionary behind the Superdome, one of the NFL's most prominent stadiums. Seeing a gap in the year where the NFL wasn't playing in the spring and summer, Dixon decided to form his own football league called the USFL, United States Football League, in the early 1980s. It came.
I'm looking for images of Dave Dixon. I have not found him. I have, however, found a meteorologist, Dave Dixon, who looks an awful lot like Gary.
Oh boy. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I'm wondering if perhaps Gary went on to other jobs under other names.
Perhaps he did. Perhaps he did. Anyways, the NFL was kind of starting to decline in the early 80s. There was kind of this perception that the game had gotten a bit stale, and a lot of the great players of the past, like Johnny Unitas, Dick Butkus, real name
I'm
by the
sorry,
way.
who?
Yeah, Dick Butkus. That was a real name of a genuinely very good player the Chicago Bears had in the 1970s. And also the famous
Oh,
woman.
oh man, oh he is a cuboidal man. This man is a fucking rectangle.
Yeah, so him, Johnny Unitas, and the famous woman beater Jim Brown were from were the players of days past, and the perception was that they were better than the current crop of players. This kind of seems to have just been purely nostalgia, seeing as this was a time when when many other of the NFL's all-time great players were playing still, like Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, and Joe Montana. This was while they were at their best. The USFL wasn't intended to challenge the NFL. It was basically just a way to milk a little more money from the sport during the spring and summer. Dixon came up with something called the Dixon Plan, which would let the league grow naturally through drafting college players like the NFL and using a salary cap, which would keep costs for paying players down. This was probably the right strategy. You can't force something like this into existence. However, the spending cap didn't last very long. All the new team owners immediately paid out the ass to try to get all of the Heisman Trophy winners and NFL stars. To try and keep the league from spending itself out of existence, the league expanded, adding a bunch of new teams and therefore raising money from the franchising fees. Among these teams were the Arizona Wranglers, the Boston Breakers, the Houston Gamblers, the Philadelphia Stars, the Memphis Showboats, and the New Jersey Generals. They chose.
You know what? They have some solid names there. They have some less solid names there. I the Gamblers. You know what? You know what? I
If
support it. I do
yeah,
also support an intervention for them. The
yeah,
Showboats, solid name, solid name.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't know why Memphis Showboats does kind of work for some reason.
Yeah, I do believe Memphis is it a Mississippi River city?
Probably is. It's or it's at least
It
close
is.
to it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's the city that has the Bass Pro Shops pyramid. Of course. How could I forget?
yeah. They also chose a few places where NFL teams already were, like Houston and Boston, and places where there were no teams, like Memphis. Not every team violated, though, the spending cap. James Bassett and Ron Blanding, former WFL team owners of they used to own a World Football League team called the Tampa Bay Bandits and the Denver Gold. What they did was they drafted local players and integrated themselves into their communities, and that worked really well. These and their teams, their USFL teams, made a profits, and they got actually higher attendance than the NFL teams in their own cities, which is very impressive. And the USFL had some great players. Um, There was future NFL MVP and Super Bowl winner Steve Young. He got his start in the USFL, as did Reggie White, who went on to become one of the greatest defensive players of all time, as well as a virulent homophobe. Jim Kelly was in the USFL too. He would go on to play in 4 consecutive Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills and horribly lose every single one of them. 4 consecutive Super Bowls and he lost them all. Uh, who else? They also had failed U.S. Senator Herschel Walker, who played in the
Oh,
USFL because he was too young to play in the NFL.
welcome back to Relevance, Herschel Walker.
3 Heisman Trophy winners, which is the award for the best college player in the nation, they entered the league. This included Herschel Walker as well as Mike Rozier and Doug Flutie. Flutie went on to play for the New Jersey Generals on the biggest contract in football history. More on that in a moment. The first season went pretty well, and the quick growth of the league caught the attention of ABC and ESPN, who offered the USFL contracts of $175 million for 4 years. They also asked that the league stayed in the spring. And then the actual games, many said the games were good. They could be sloppy, literally and figuratively. It rains a lot in the spring, so many games are played in basically mud pits. And in the summer, it gets very hot to the point of being genuinely quite dangerous to players and fans.
Yeah. I can think of you and I have both been around the University of Maryland campus. Um, we uh
Yeah,
we know of a
yeah,
certain incident that happened because people were doing football related activities in the summer.
yeah, yeah, that does happen. Yep. Um, anyways, but that said, the league also invented the 2 points conversion, which is now used in the NFL, um, which is the ability to, instead of kicking an extra point after a touchdown, you can try to go for the end zone again and get 2 points. They also had they also came up with the ability to for coaches to challenge referee calls, and a bit like the AFL, the league also gave black players a chance at quarterback. In the NFL, most black quarterbacks coming out of college were encouraged to play another position. Yeah. And then in 1983, and I hate to do this because we hear about this fuckhead enough, a certain real estate mogul and notorious pedophile from New York City saw the USFL and wanted in. Donald Trump bought Donald Trump bought the New Jersey Generals for $10 million. Most owners paid $1.5 million, by the way, and everyone was excited because keep in mind at this point, Trump was just a rich guy who owned hotels and casinos. His brain hadn't melted into a soup yet. He was probably still being a horrible sex pest behind the scenes, but he hadn't gone senile yet. All the people knew was here's this rich guy, and he believes in us. Right away, Trump got to spending. He got multiple players from the NFL, such as former MVP Brian Sipe, and he already had Herschel Walker. This is probably how they met and what led to Trump getting Herschel kind of under his thumb. Um, he also got Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defensive player in NFL history, to sign a futures contract. I guess that meant whenever he stopped playing in the NFL, he would go play for the Generals. Then Trump called up Pete Rozelle, the NFL commissioner. Rozelle obviously wasn't thrilled to hear from him. He knew enough about Trump by this point to not trust him. Trump wanted Rozelle to let the New Jersey Generals into the NFL. Rozelle obviously told him no, but Trump explained himself. If the Generals were let into the league, Trump would tank the USFL. He considered the league a joke, and knew he could run it into the ground real quick. That sounds like something he would do, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, coming from the man who managed to bankrupt a casino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Roselle still said no. And he actually went further with it. He told Trump that as long as he and his contemporaries were around, they'd ensure that Donald Trump would never own an NFL team. Roselle left, and Trump went apeshit, just as he usually does when someone says no to him. At that moment, he declared war on the NFL, and he'd used the USFL as his weapon. Trump was liked by his players. He paid them well, hauled them up in nice hotels, even got them charter flights. But it didn't take long for him to become unpopular with the other team owners. He apparently was highly abusive to the league commissioner, enough so that James Bassett wrote him a letter telling him to shut up. While other quote, while others may be able to let your insensitive and denigrating comments pass, I no longer will. You are a bigger, younger, and stronger than I, which means I'll have no regrets whatsoever punching you right in the mouth the next time an instance occurs where you personally scorn me or anyone else who does not happen to salute or and dance to your tune. This was
I
written in
that's
1984.
I
What?
was going to say the word I'm the words I'm shocked by are the fact that he would describe Donald Trump as in any way, more physically fit than literally anyone else. But then again, yeah, I'm thinking about the current one.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Anyways, one thing that Trump wanted to do was he wanted to move the USFL to the fall. He said, quote, if God wanted football in the spring, he wouldn't have created baseball. His plan was that with the NFL falling and the USFL rising, going to the fall would put more pressure on the NFL to merge with the USFL. He would then, and I'm not fucking with you, force the New York Jets and the New York Giants to move to New Jersey so he could put the Generals in Manhattan and make them the New York Generals.
Uh,
The owners were skeptical, and Trump agreed to go and talk with the executives at NBC and other networks, and he came back saying that they thought moving to the fall was a great idea and they should do it. With that, the owners agreed. Trump was a successful businessman, after all. How could he be wrong? But there was a problem. Trump lied. I know, it's shocking.
Tell me something that isn't new.
He did talk with the TV executives, but they all told him that this was a terrible idea. He hired an agency to do an analysis for him, and a woman came back and said, this is a terrible idea. To which Trump said, quote, that bitch doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. To put
Well,
pressure
that's a statement we'll never hear out of his mouth again.
to put pressure on the TV people, he called news outlets under the name John Barron and talked about how Trump was going to get ABC or NBC to cover the USFL and that the NFL was totally going to get its ass kicked. As a result of all of this, the USFL moved to the fall and got slaughtered. Also, Trump couldn't afford Doug Flutie's contract, um, which is the highest contract in the history of football. So he asked in a letter the other owners to help foot the bill. A letter that he wrote with that, and that letter he wrote. What do you think that letter ended with?
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Literally, yes. He ended it with that. The other owners obviously told him to fuck off, and Flutie ended up being. And Flutie wasn't really that great anyway. He went on to be kind of a fine-ish backup quarterback in the NFL, but not really much more than that. Following this, Trump tried suing the NFL for $1.5 billion in an antitrust lawsuit, in which Trump served as the main witness in and tried intimidating the jury. The USFL,
Oh, he surely won't attempt to do any of that ever again.
yeah, no, he's not done that ever again since. He learned his lesson, definitely, totally. And then the incredible happens. The USFL won on every count because they were sort of right. The NFL did have a monopoly on football in the United States. However, the jury's decision was to award the NFL a single dollar because Trump was such an ass that they decided only he could be blamed for the USFL's position. The USFL died right then and there, lasting only 3 seasons. Trump was largely ambivalent. When he was asked about it many years later, he called it small potatoes. And that's the story of the USFL, or at least the first USFL. And before we get on to the next failed football league, we have to take a slight detour into Conversation Corner.
We must take the football of topics, punt it into it, through the goalposts of discussion, and score however many points we score in the conversation corner.
Right, so for Conversation Corner, so NASA is planning on launching Artemis 2 pretty soon. That's the plan for that mission is to go around the moon with 4 astronauts and then come back. I believe it's set for March.
I did hear something about them pushing the launch window back slightly.
They may well have. I wouldn't be surprised. Um, I know in January, I think it was, they had to delay it because of extremely cold weather. And the instant I saw that, I just thought, "Oh, hey, I've seen this before. I've seen this show before. This is a classic." Because, but thank God they delayed it though, because the last time they tried launching a space vehicle in very cold temperatures, it did not go well at all. It ended
No,
very
no, it didn't.
badly. Um,
So some might even call them explosive consequences.
yeah, potentially explosive consequences. This is, of course, is just the first part of NASA trying to go back to the moon, and then eventually trying to go to Mars, which will be in like 20 years. And then in 20 years, they'll say, we'll get to Mars in 20 years or so. And then in 20 years after that, they'll probably say, maybe another 20 years or so, we'll get there.
It is worth noting that, dear viewer, private space ventures are not any better.
No, they're not. They're worse,
Elon
actually.
Musk has recently scaled back his intentions after swearing that we'd be on Mars next year since like 2012.
Yeah.
He has finally admitted that no, in fact, we're going to the moon first, so that he can launch satellites into space with a catapult.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. That will go over so well for Mr. Musk, I bet. All right, anything else, really?
I do. I know I mentioned this to you to you and some of our friends last night um, to bring him up again, and hopefully for the last time in this episode. Donald Trump. For whatever
Great.
reason, we are going to send USNS Mercy, one of the two floating hospital ships that the U.S. Navy has on standby. We are sending it to Greenland to
Great.
apparently save them all from dying of diseases. I I
Yeah.
don't know why he's doing this. I don't know why, when he possesses a government database full of images of the ship, he had to go and AI generate a fucking image of it, do my girl
Probably
dirty like that.
he probably thought it was cooler or something.
But she's pretty. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
but
she's a
he's
converted oil tanker full of hospital beds, but she's pretty in that way.
yeah, but she's got all those stains on her. All those
Except
stains coming
she
out of those.
doesn't. She's kept in immaculate condition.
Or at least in the picture you showed, there's a lot of stains on there. He probably
Oh,
thought,
please.
it's
Some little rust marks are common on ships.
yeah, but for this fucking guy, he probably like, oh, it's too ugly. That's just how that's my Trump impression for you. Thank you. All right.
In in other things I am now reasonably learning about, Lamborghini is apparently no longer going to be producing electric supercars. And they're dropping that plan.
Yeah. Who knew that the people who bought supercars um weren't really that interested in electric cars?
Yeah, I mean, it
Um,
doesn't surprise me.
yeah, not a surprise at all. Anyways,
I think we're getting on to the one that I might know like one or two things about.
we'll be. That's not too far away. That's not too far away. Anyways, now we're gonna go on to I think my favorite one of all of these. This is one I actually have a bit of experience with because I watched the Arena Football League a bit in the early 2010s. It was every Friday night in the summer and spring. The NFL Network would air at least one of the Arena football games, and they were always good fun to watch. They're very high scoring. Teams could score up to 70 to 80 points a game. It was almost like basketball, really. The difference between normal football and arena football is pretty simple. The field is half the size, from 100 yards to 50 yards, and they're all indoors.
Ah,
The
so it's
idea,
it's the sort of thing, as I'm looking at it now, the sort of thing that one could play on, say, a basketball court.
yeah, more or less. And that's probably where they do play a lot of the games, in fact. I believe you have actually, to not dox you, when I was doing research from this, I think you do have an arena football team not too far away from you, in
Oh, let me
fact.
let me look this up. Oh,
Anyways,
oh, the okay.
yeah. So the idea came from an NFL employee named Jim Foster while he was watching a major indoor soccer league game at the famous Nazi arena, Madison Square Garden, in 1981. After 6 years of bouncing around and thinking up new ideas, the Arena Football League began in 1987 with a contract with ESPN. The league had some really cool names, too, for the teams, like the Utah Blaze, the New Orleans Voodoo, the Chicago Rush, the Orlando Predators, the Pittsburgh Power, and the Philadelphia Soul.
I will say I am looking at some of these like team names and team logos, and they do fuck. Like these are pretty solid.
It became a very popular kind of sort of local sports. Hockey arenas and basketball courts would have artificial turf laid over them, and they could get at least half full for an arena football game whenever it took place. It wasn't anywhere near the NFL in terms of popularity, but it did well enough to survive much longer than any other spring football league. What really got people to talk about arena football was a quarterback named Kurt Warner. After his brief and not at all successful stint with the Green Bay Packers, Warner ended up at a Hy-Vee stocking shelves in the night, waiting for another call from an NFL team, which he never got. But
Okay.
Warner, but Warner did get attention from the Iowa Barnstormers, one of the AFL's marquee teams. Warner became the best quarterback in arena football, winning an Arena Bowl in Iowa and becoming a local legend. He's regarded as possibly the greatest arena football player of all time. This got him noticed by the St. Louis Rams, who offered him a tryout, which Warner said went terribly. Still, they signed him, and he was sent to Europe to play in the aforementioned NFL Europe. He then ended up back at the Rams as a backup to Trent Green. Green tore his ACL in a 1999 preseason game, giving the starting job to Kurt Warner, who proceeded to become a star. In his first season as a starter in the NFL, he won the NFL MVP, the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl MVP. He won another MVP 2 years later and would play in two more Super Bowls on his way to the NFL Hall of Fame. Without question, he is the most famous player to ever come from arena football. In the early 2000s, the AFL expanded further thanks to investments from 6 NFL teams, including the Saints, the Lions, and Jerry Jones' ever awful Dallas Cowboys. Despite that, the teams were losing tons of money no matter the attendance or the ratings. The NFL teams started selling, the recession came around, and the 2009 season was canceled. The AFL filed for bankruptcy in August, but they kept going thanks to non-NFL investors and owners of AF2 teams. Yeah, they started a minor league in the 2000s. There's a reason why they were $14 million in debt.
I was going to say that's impressive commitment, and then now I'm informed that it was in fact just a money sink.
Yeah. In the 2010s, when I was watching, the league did well for a bit, but eventually fell apart. A lot of rock stars owned teams, including John Bon Jovi. He owns the Philadelphia Soul.
John Bon Jovi, a man nearly killed by my hero Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah. Gene Simmons and Vince Neil of Motley Crue owned
Oh
teams.
wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Not John Bon Jovi. I was thinking of Bono.
Oh, God.
Jimmy
Big
Buffett nearly
difference.
killed Bono.
Yeah. And Vince Neil's team, the Las Vegas Outlaws, went bust before they could even get through their first season. In 2018, only 4 teams remained, and after the 2019 season, the league went bust again. By the end, the players didn't even have health insurance. Other indoor football leagues like the IFL, which stands for Indoor Football League, have kept arena football as a concept going ever since, and a few of the AFL teams have stayed active with the IFL. The AFL tried coming back once more in 2024, only to die again and be replaced with Arena Football 1, which still exists today with 9 teams. The ultimate game for Arena Football was the Arena Bowl, and it could get quite a bit of attention actually in the sports world. I watched a couple times my childhood. Um, I remember watching live once as the Jacksonville Sharks. Remember them? They stayed active with the Arena Football League. When they won the championship with a touchdown with no time remaining on the clock over the Arizona Rattlers. The game was played in Arizona, and so the stadium just went completely silent. It was when they scored the touchdown. It was pretty neat. Now on to that league, the best one of them all, the just the best the best spring football league of them all. We're now going to talk about the XFL.
Yeah, baby.
The XFL does not stand for the Extreme Football League. Its founder, the vile Vince McMahon, said that it officially stood for nothing, but jokingly said it.
They stand
But
for nothing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but he jokingly said it meant the Extra Fun League, as the NFL is jokingly referred to as the No Fun League. It could also be because there was actually an extreme football league in 2000 that was just arena football, but I guess not arena football. It didn't catch on, it merged with the AFL. And neither did the XFL catch on, but Mr. McMahon sure thought it would. The idea for the league came when McMahon nearly purchased the Toronto Argonauts, a team in the Canadian Football League, which is basically the only non NFL pro football league that has had a lot of success. The
Well,
Canadian
I
Football
think
League's been around
the
for a
Liga de
very.
Football Americano Profesional would like to have a word with you.
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, anyways, the Argonauts had been successful, but their attendance numbers were very bad, and they hoped that McMahon might offer up some like WWE esque drama to get those numbers back up. McMahon did them one better by offering to buy the Canadian Football League and move it to the US, which obviously earned him a firm no. Alongside this, NBC lost broadcasting rights to the NFL. They were outbid by CBS, and they were pissed. McMahon wanted a football league, and NBC wanted to broadcast football. The NBC considered starting a league of their own, but decided to partner with McMahon and create the XFL. See, for many years now, people have thought the NFL was too soft. All these rules about what is a catch and what isn't a catch, how you can't tackle like this or like that. And this discussion isn't new. You'll remember earlier, the USFL grew out of the idea that the NFL had gotten stale. This was similar to that, only much funnier. Basically, imagine Action Park but applied to football. That was the XFL.
Ah,
The
ah.
the first and only XFL season was played in 2001 with 8 teams, 4 in each division, all owned and operated by the XFL rather than by franchises. And yes, one of the teams was in Birmingham and another was in Memphis. They also had a team in Vegas, a place bereft of professional sports at the time. The league played 10 games for each team, and the best 4 made the playoffs. These teams had crazy names, like the Memphis Maniacs with an X, the New York, New Jersey Hitmen, the Chicago Enforcers, and the Orlando Rage. The Birmingham team was originally going to be called the Blast. You can guess why that
Okay.
had to be changed immediately. You can guess why they could not call them the Birmingham Blast. That is not right.
I did very. I mean, as you started to say the name, I heard the city of Birmingham, and I heard you go blah, and I was like, oh God, no.
No, not Blood. Blast.
Still not a great name. No.
No, that is not going to work. that is that is just not going to go. That is not going to go over well. Anyways, the XFL's rules were different in that there were almost none. No penalties for roughness. They had sexy girls everywhere, and players could get anything put on the nameplates on their jerseys, rather than just their last name. One guy had "He Hates Me" on there. One man put "Tink" on his nameplate. Another dude had "Big Daddy" and his number was 69. The ball was black and red and it had the XFL logo on it. Honestly, it looks pretty sick. I like it. The players did complain about the ball being too slippery, however. There were cameras all over the stadium for constant interviews, including in the locker room, which is a bit different from the NFL. The
Well, Donald
announcers,
Trump would have liked it.
oh yeah, he would have loved that. The announcers taunted the players. The cheerleaders were encouraged to date players, which is fucked right up. This is not allowed in the NFL, by the way. The cheerleaders are
For
not allowed
obvious
to,
reasons.
they're not allowed to date players, period. Um, McMahon also did a skit where he tried to bust into the cheerleader locker room with a camera, which is also fucked right up.
Well, Donald Trump would have liked it.
He would have liked it a lot, yeah. Especially if they were under like 15. He would have loved that. Um,
Unfortunately.
as far as the game goes, there were also some key differences. To decide possession at the start of the game, rather than a pathetic little coin toss, the ball was placed on the field and two players had to run at it and grab it. Whoever got there first got possession, and they could do whatever they wanted to get it. This caused a player to suffer a season-ending separated shoulder. In fact, injuries were
Ow.
basically everywhere in this league. This league just destroyed people's bodies. One thing that was done to limit injuries was that they made kickoffs shorter, so they couldn't pick up much speed before crashing into one another. They also allowed for two forward passes as long as they were both behind the line of scrimmage, whereas the NFL only allows one. Extra point field goals were eliminated in favor of a 1 point conversion from the 2 yard line, a 2 point conversion from the 5, or a 3 point conversion from the 10 yard line. The XFL also mandated grass stadiums and outlawed AstroTurf, which they said would be safer. It actually is safer. That's
Yeah,
not
I
a
was
bad.
gonna say that's like the one thing they've gotten right here.
Yeah. The games were messy and attendance figures were rough. You wouldn't know that though, because whenever a player was interviewed, they pointed the camera directly upward at their face so the empty stands wouldn't show up as easily. Or they put the cameras right up against a tiny crowd so it looks like it was packed. The ultimate goal for the teams was to make the XFL $1 million game, or as it was originally known, the big game at the end. No, really, that's what they initially called it. The big game at the end.
It's like running out of ideas while you're writing.
Yeah. One game, $1 million on the line. But keep in mind, this was $1 million split between all 38 players on the roster, which meant they got just a bit over $26,000. It's not. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not not $1 million, is it? Apparently, that paid less than the Pro Bowl, a game that nobody cared about in 2001 and is now nearly gone altogether. Following 10 weeks of what was not very good football that nobody watched past the first few weeks, the one and only $1 million game was played on April 21st, 2001, at the LA Memorial Coliseum, pitting the San Francisco Demons against the Los Angeles Extreme. People already weren't sure if the XFL would be coming back in 2002, so they'd have to really enjoy this game while it lasted. They also got Jesse Ventura to do color commentary because why not? The $1 million game was horseshit. Two San Francisco players were injured on their first drive, and LA took control. On their next drive, on third down and 31 yards to go, the San Francisco quarterback punted. In this league, if the ball travels more than 25 yards, it could be recovered by either team. LA recovered and ran it back 75 yards for a touchdown. At the end of the first half, it was 21 to nothing to Los Angeles. In the second half, LA continued to dominate. A San Francisco player got penalized for punching a Los Angeles player rather than tackling them. No, it wasn't a fight. He just punched him while
I was
looking.
gonna say, I feel like that's kind of in the spirit of
Yeah, come
the
on,
game.
Vince. Come on, Vince. That should be legal. Let them punch each other.
I demand the hockey fight of football.
Yeah, come on. Like that is just, I don't know what the issue here is with that. Anyways, after that, the San Francisco quarterback got benched for playing like complete and utter shit. Um, and it was revealed afterwards that he played most of the season with a broken neck. He never played football again.
I
All,
can't imagine why.
Also, all of the interviews are on-field reports. All of the interviews and on-field reports were given with audio pumped into the stadium speakers so everyone within like 2 miles could hear. With 5 minutes to go, they went ahead and gave the LA coach the Gatorade bath, and the team donned their champions hats. With 2 minutes to go, the San Francisco backup quarterback was injured while down 38 to nothing and having already thrown multiple interceptions. The third string quarterback then ran it into the end zone to make it 38-6. The game ended on a failed 3 point conversion, which Tink intercepted and nearly returns to the other end zone. 38-6 would be the final score, and the XFL was shut down within a month. NBC reportedly lost $45 million on this. And that is the XFL, the first chapter of it, anyway. Also, the US just won the gold medal. God damn it. Anyways, so we're now going to get on to the currents. In 2018, Vince McMahon announced that the XFL would be returning. A mix of nostalgia for pre 9/11 America and people getting sick of the NFL's rules led to people wanting it to come back. And
I mean,
Vince.
I don't even freaking remember pre 9/11 America, and I want it back.
Yeah. Vince promised to make it happen by, quote, bringing football back to fans. He focused on making football more exciting, but that they wouldn't go as crazy as they did back in 2001, and that fan feedback would be the most important thing of all. They had 8 teams, none of them from the original XFL. They included the Dallas Renegades, the DC Defenders, the Houston Roughnecks, and the Seattle Dragons. Because it's Vince McMahon, he decided to make the XFL a part of the culture wars. This wasn't long after the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, which led to many conservatives boycotting the NFL, as they take a lot of issues with freedom of speech. In the XFL, the First Amendment need not apply. No kneeling during the national anthem, ever. They also banned players with criminal records. The league was
So
due to be
they banned like every single football player ever.
more or less, yeah. The league was due to begin in February of 2020. Oh no. I actually remember opening day for for this version of the XFL. I stopped in an Applebee's for dinner, an Applebee's that you and I have probably went to at least once while we were in college. Um, they had the games on,
Oh,
and
that
people,
Applebee's.
yeah, that one, and they had the games on. People were watching it. They were giving it a chance. It seemed like it was better than it was in 2001. I'm sure it'll go very well through March of 2020. Oh, never mind. There's a virus going around. The season was cancelled, and 3 weeks after that, the league announced that it would shut down. All
I'm
of that hard work.
it shut down. I'm frankly astounded. I was wholly expecting this. Listener, I do not pay attention to American sports. I was wholly expecting this to be the COVID League.
Nope, it just they had no money because of COVID. They just lost all their money. But wait, it's Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He wants to buy the XFL, and he does
Oh
so for
no!
$15 million. The Rock once sought an NFL career, so the passion was there. The league started again in 2023 with most of the new teams. The LA Wildcats were replaced by the San Antonio Brahmas, and no one cared. The season finished, but ratings tanked after the first week or two. And what's this? The USFL is back, and also not doing very well, given they had to base the entire league out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Why does Birmingham, Alabama keep coming up? What
I
is
don't
the
know.
first running bit of this podcast? The city of Birmingham.
I guess it might be because it's a town in the South, a big city in the South, where football is popular, and Alabama doesn't have any professional teams. They just have the college teams. I don't know.
I
Anyways,
suppose.
anyways, two football leagues, both in the spring, both trying to take on the NFL.
Two,
Sounds like they
two,
have the same
two,
goal.
two leagues. Oh God, I can't remember the opening to Romeo and Juliet.
Perhaps a merger is in order. And so in 2024, that's
A
what they did.
merger or a suicide pact?
And the USFL and the XFL merged into the UFL, United Football League. The UFL is still going with 8 teams. It's owned jointly by The Rock, Fox, Disney, and a few other companies I don't care to talk about. I've watched a bit of the UFL. It was just it's just kind of boring. The stadiums are usually empty, so there's not much of an atmosphere, and the games are usually blowouts from the ones I've seen. The quality of play just simply is not very good, but it's still going, and it will continue. It will get back going in about a month, I think. So what about the future then? Um, what's the plan in the years to come? Well, to start, the NFL is planning on making some flag football leagues, one for men, one for women. This is primarily because the 2028 Olympics plans to have flag football as an exhibition of sorts. This, unironically, is the most likely one to succeed.
I was
Football is
gonna say
probably the
that's not a half bad idea.
Flag football is probably the only kind of football that Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson would be allowed to play. That's not in the fall. And people aren't going to watch nobodies who weren't good enough for Division One college football, let alone the NFL. There are also plans for a non-NFL flag football tournament called the Fanatics Football Classic, featuring Tom Brady, Ron Gron- Rob Gronkowski, Christian McCaffrey.
Gronkowski's back.
He's back. He's back again.
He's fucking
And
back.
star current NFL players like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Jaden Daniels, and coaches Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, and Kyle Shanahan.
All right, now
Three
you're just
coaches.
making names up again.
I guess I am, maybe. Three coaches for a three-team tournament. Sounds cool. Well, unfortunately, this league is being organized by Tom Brady in conjunction with Fanatics and also the Saudi General Entertainment Authority.
Oh
It will
god.
it will be played in Riyadh with Kevin Hart hosting it on Fox. Kill me.
Really?
Saudi
Oh
Arabia.
no. So
Saudi
okay, so
Arabia.
we're just going to do the universe. I believe it's the 2019 University of Maryland heat stroke incident to multiple teams of football players is the deserts of Saudi Arabia.
I suppose so. But just Kevin Hart's Fox, Saudi Arabia. That is a horrible combination. That is such an insufferable combination of things.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this might have some ideas. Then it was okay, this might have an idea, and then it was oh god, and then it was oh god, Kevin Hart.
Yeah. One league I didn't mention that I think was on the right track was the fan controlled football league. This was an arena football league that aired on Twitch a couple years ago where the viewers voted on the offensive plays each team made and decided the outcome instant replays. The league
Twitch
didn't
plays
survive.
football.
The league didn't survive, but I think this at least had the right idea. You're not going to out NFL the NFL. You need to do something radically different. I think if they had given the fans more control, maybe deciding team rosters, letting them draw up plays to submit like online or something, deciding the rules, maybe on which players to draft or substitute, I think this league could have survived, honestly.
Yeah, it's actually not a half bad idea. I kind of like it because it allows the stupidity of the masses to finally have control over the game of football.
Yeah, exactly. I also found something called Major League Football, which plans to start in 2022, then was delayed.
Major League Football, the
Yeah,
MILF.
yeah. Then was delayed to 2023, then 2024, now 2026. What I find a little bit interesting about this is the teams have been placed in traditional markets like New York, Florida, Alabama, but also non traditional markets like Connecticut, Charleston, West Virginia, Utah, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Idaho. They intend to have 30
To be fair, they
teams.
have just like added another congressional seat for Idaho by doing that.
Yeah, probably. They intend to have 30 teams for the first season, split into the East and West conferences. They intend to play in the fall, however, and compete against the NFL. Will it succeed? Probably not, but I appreciate them doing things at least a little bit differently. Um, that's the question, though, for all these leagues. Will any of them put a dent in the NFL's stranglehold on professional football? My opinion is no. The reason, because the NFL never really stops. The Super Bowl was only a couple weeks ago. In just a few days, the NFL Combine starts, and that lasts to March 2nd. In late April, there's the NFL Draft, which at this point is almost as anticipated as the Super Bowl. Not long after that, the training camp takes place, and some of that is televised, and that lasts all summer. Certainly, the stories that come out of training camp will last all summer. Then the preseason games start in late July, and then it's week 1 of the regular season. In between all of these things is an endless stream of content from podcasts, radio shows, YouTubers, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, all talking for thousands of hours about how this player will do next season, if this coach was a good hire or not, who will be the best tight end for your fantasy football team. All of this being produced now. It will be produced tomorrow. It will be produced 2 months from now. And if somehow that's not
And
enough,
none of them talking about the kind of tight end that I want.
oh, I. And if somehow that's not enough, there's a wealth of old games to watch and video games to play about football. Also, other sports. Other sports exist. No one's talking about a baseball league that plays in December or a hockey league that plays in August. Why does anyone want a football league in the spring and summer? These spring leagues are looking for a gap in the market, but the reality is that this gap no longer exists. While the NFL only plays in the fall and winter, it is already a year round sport, and that's unlikely to change anytime soon. And that is our episode on spring and summer professional football leagues. How do you feel about that?
I'm feeling pretty good. I support you there. There are other sports. Please patronize other sports.
Yeah,
We
like
want there to be leagues and interested things.
yeah, like when it's June, why do you need football? Just go watch baseball. Just
There
go
are other
watch
sports than baseball.
yeah, or basketball or I don't fucking know. It's something that's not football. Something that's just not football. It doesn't have to be football all the time. Any if it were football all the time, it would stop feeling special, wouldn't it? Yeah, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So, do you want to give us a little hints on maybe what the next episode's going to be coming from you?
So yeah, sure. As we know, I like a guy. I also happen to like women, but I like a guy.
Yeah.
Um, and as it is our fourth episode, I feel it very fitting that we are going to be talking about a guy who does the same thing 4 times.
Oh, great. Not 2 times this time though. Like
No,
good old Tom Fitzpatrick.
no, this guy. This we're gonna enjoy this, and we will have a visit from my favorite branch of the military, the United States Coast Guard,
Oh boy.
multiple
There we
times.
go. That's what I'm talking
So,
about.
so I hope that you all will join us next time on our next episode Let's stop doing that.
Yep, we'll see you soon.